What's going on, everybody? John Eric Poli here with My MMA News, and today I'm joined by Mario Bautista, who will be fighting at UFC Vegas 71 on March 11th. He'll be fighting Guido Cannetti. Mario, nice to see you again, man.
Likewise, good to see you.
So, for everybody that's going to be out there watching this interview, I do want to back up actually to 2022, and this is something I know we've talked about in the past, but let's just say it's somebody tuning in for the first time to one of your interviews here. Last year, you were red hot, 3-0 on the year. Just look back at last year and what that year kind of meant to you, just to kind of get the serious momentum, rolling here in the bantamweight division.
No, it felt pretty good, to accomplish some goals I set in 2021. I wanted to be uh prior to then I was fighting once a year. So I wanted 2022 to be very active. I'll be as active as I could. I shot for four. I got three fights, so I was still super happy with it. And three wins as well.
Now, the big important question here is how do you keep that momentum now rolling here in 2023?
Right? I got the same blueprint as last time or last year, fought early in the year, and if I set myself up good, I can get, definitely two more fights in before the end of the year.
And just given like the way how last year played out, I kind of figured you got to be pretty close to being either ranked or at least getting a ranked guy. Any frustrations that this wasn't that fight now, or do you think it's fair and that you need to get this win here that gives you four in a row, and then that kind of puts you in that ranking picture?
Yeah, I wasn't too mad about it at first. I definitely wanted a ranked guy or somewhere close. But it is what it is, and there's positive things to take away from this fight. He's experienced. Um, that first round he's going to come out pretty hot, so I get to experience something like that and kind of deal with it before I even get into like the bigger fights.
And then for everybody that's out there watching this too, they might not realize it because I actually didn't realize that we were talking off air because I was going to get ready to ask you like, do you feel good that the fight's in the Apex given how everything went last year? This fight, not in the Apex. It is in the Virgin Hotels, the former Hard Rock in Las Vegas there. So just kind of fill everybody in because there's fans are able to go to this one. I'm not sure if it's sold out yet or not, but I'm sure fans will probably be pretty interested to hear about that.
Yeah, no, think my last four fights have been at the Apex, so this one is going to be at the Virgin Hotels. So it seats like 4 to 5 thousand people, and yeah, it's awesome, man. I as soon as uh as soon as the family found out, they made their arrangements to head down there. Friends and family are going to be able to go, so I'm looking forward to it. Hearing the crowd, and if I could have those performances I had last year in front of a crowd, man, that would be awesome.
Yeah, are you one of those guys that like you kind of feed off of the crowd energy? Because I've heard from a lot of fighters. I mean, I've heard of both sides. Some fighters do actually enjoy the apex, but a lot of fighters will say there is nothing like having that crowd and you just feed off of their energy when you're inside there.
Yeah, during the fight, I don't pay too much attention. If they're booing or whatever. I don't think anyone's ever booed at one of my fights though. But definitely afterwards, once you have like a great performance and you just hear the crowd cheer, that's what I look for. It's not really during the fight. Um, so I'm definitely excited. I took it for granted. Never thought I would be at the Apex fighting in front of no one. So I took it for granted for sure. So I'm excited to get back to it.
All right, man, let's get into some of these fight specifics now. Let's talk training camp. I know you're starting to put the final touches on it. Fight night's getting closer and closer here, but just how's camp been going so far?
That's going pretty good. Got my like a week and a half of hard work left, and then that fight week kind of relax and just fine tune everything. But everything's been going great for this camp. Like I said, I was supposed to fight him 2021, so I've already kind of done a camp. So it was just following that same blueprint, and it's been pretty smooth.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that. Like, what's that like whenever you're? It's not necessarily a rematch because the fight didn't ever come to fruition there. But what is that like when you have to, go through another training camp for an opponent that you already were scheduled to fight, and you have to go through that same entire process all over again?
Uh, I mean, it makes it a lot easier, that's for sure, because we know what the game plan is, and we've practiced it, so we know what works and what doesn't work. And I don't think he's changed since then. So it's pretty much the same thing. And like I said, it just pretty smooth. You know, we know what we're gonna do. We have the game plan set, and now it's just time to execute it.
And I know you said he hasn't changed much since, but I know one thing's that definitely may have changed maybe since 2021. I know he's going through like a little rough patch there, but he's kind of turned some things around. He's won his last two fights there. Just what have you seen out of him, I guess, more in these two victories recently, maybe that you're really, paying attention to that maybe may have done something different or did something that, flip that back into the win column for himself?
Yeah, I think like as far as like skill wise, he hasn't changed much, but I think he and I can't say for sure, so I put myself in his shoes. And if I'm in his shoes, I know the end of the road is near, you know. So I'm going out first round to knock people out and get those first round finishes. I'm not trying to win decisions. So that's what I got to plan for. Come for him coming out hot, weathering that storm, and just playing it smart, you know, until he makes a mistake, either in the first round or the second or third.
All right, man, let's talk now big picture here, 2023. What are some of the goals? I'm going to go ahead and guess that one of them is to remain active because it played out so great for you last year.
Yeah, definitely remain active. Good things have happened for me, you know, remaining active. So I definitely want to get into the top 15 this year, and start looking at the top 10 for next year. But I'm shooting for 3 fights, and like I said, want to get into that top 15, have some great performances, so they can't deny me.
All right, so I remember back when I was in college, I had a Spanish class I had to take, and I didn't retain anything. And I still remember, every single time the teacher in class saying, though, if you don't use it, you lose it. Is that kind of sort of like why you want to remain active the way how you did last year? Like there is something like when you're in there fighting that there's just that, I guess you say sort of like momentum. You feel more and more comfortable each time, sort of like that, where if you weren't being so active and you were only fighting once a year that you kind of lose a little bit of that because you're not in there and you're not doing it as much.
Yeah, no, no, definitely. You get used to the camps. You get used to the feeling of, the grind during those camps. It's not a surprise. You take a year off and then you come back to it, and you kind of lose rhythm of the camp. So yeah, that's mainly it. And being more comfortable inside that cage. The more cage time you have, in the UFC, the better. Anytime I step in there, I kind of have like this feeling like it's just some big thing. And once I step in there, it reminds me of the cage back here at our gym. I get the same feeling when I'm going to spar my partners. It's the same feeling, and that gives me confidence because I know what to do in those situations, and I'm able to execute.
All right, man. Just to close out today, I want to talk about a few other matchups within your division there. We'll start with the main event on the night that you'll be fighting with Peter Yan and Marab. Big time matchup. I know your teammate Sean O'Malley is probably in front of them in the line of as far as title pictures go and everything, but still, it's an intriguing matchup. We don't know what's going to happen with the whole Aljamain Sterling, Henry Cejudo thing and what transpires afterwards with that. So there's a very good possibility that the winner of this fight, maybe down the road, is fighting your teammate there for a title shot. Just want to get your thoughts on the main event that night.
Yeah, I think it's a great matchup. Marab versus Jan. Uh, I have Marab in that fight. Just man, that guy, he just does not stop. He has great cardio, has a good chin, great wrestling. So I have Marab in that fight, and yeah, we'll see what happens with the title picture after that. If Henry wins, I know Marab and Aljamain are buddies, so I think that might give Marab that opportunity to just try to get that title shot. Since Aljamain is, if he did lose. So I don't know. We'll see what happens after that fight.
Yeah, and even if Aljamain is to win too, I know he's kind of hinted that this might be his last fight at bantamweights, and you kind of have the whole vacant picture, and then I'm sure that Sean's definitely in there. Do you put Sean Marab? Is Henry, where is he floating around and all that? Because he's obviously a draw. A lot of scenarios to play out there, but at least we do know that Aljamain and Henry are fighting UFC 288 in May. That's been pretty much made official this week. Just want to get your thoughts on that matchup as well.
Yeah, Henry versus Aljamain. Yeah, it's gonna be a good fight. I think I have Aljamain in that one, just because he has I think better submissions. He has great wrestling, but I think he has better submissions than Henry, and I think the striking will kind of negate itself. So we'll see what happens in the wrestling, and it should be a pretty good fight.
All right, man. Appreciate the time as always. Last thing before you head out, social media so people know where to follow you at. You have any management, sponsorship stuff, anything like that that you have to plug? You get the last word. Floor is yours.
Yeah, I just want to thank Iridium Sports Agency for setting this up, the MMA Lab, my team, for giving me all the work and supporting me, and want to thank you for doing this interview.